Hello students. Today in this lecture we are going to discuss about the replication process of DNA, and more specifically we will be talking about the origin of replication and replication fork. So let us first understand that why DNA replication is important. Well, the answer is replication is important so that the information which is present in the form of genetic code be passed on from one cell to another. Also, when cytoplasmic ratio increases, then DNA has to be divided during S phase and then occurs replication. So some of the features of DNA replication. So DNA replication is basically an autocatalytic process. As the term indicates, autocatalytic process means that your DNA has the ability to make a copy of itself, whereby the two new strands of DNA are synthesized over to parent strand, and the parent strand is also known as the template strand. So this we all are familiar, the semi-conservative mode of the DNA. Out of the two strands of DNA, one of the strand acts as a template strand, complementary to which the daughter strand is synthesized, and thus the process is autocatalytic. Apart from that, the point here to understand is now what are the requirements for DNA replication. So any process which is engaged in making a copy of DNA essentially requires some enzymes or maybe some kind of machinery. As we said, we have a template which comes from the parent strand. So accordingly, there are certain requirements which have to be there in order to proceed the replication, or I must say to initiate the replication process. So what are they? So basically, the very first important requirement is a replicon. So this replicon is nothing, your DNA template only. But yes, of course, there are certain features of replicon. We will take it up in the next slides. Then you need a battery of enzymes. You need several enzymes whose main function is to do the replication, to synthesize a polynucleotide chain. We will see one by one. And then you need a primer, of course, and then the nucleotides, obviously, which are the building blocks of the polynucleotide chain. So let us first start with the replicon. Now what this replicon is? So replicon is nothing but it is the fundamental unit of replication. So in other words, I would say that it's a section of DNA or RNA that have all the components required for replication. And it is also known as DNA that replicates from a single origin of replication. So we know this thing that the replication of DNA originates from a single site, and that particular site is known as origin of replication. And now if we talk about replicon, which is a unit of replication, the point here is that a replicon is able to replicate independently, which means the presence of an origin of replication is essential in a replicon. And further, depending upon the number of origin of replication, which is also abbreviated as ORI, your DNA can either be monorepliconic or multirepliconic. Now, monorepliconic condition means you have only one origin of replication and whole of the DNA will be replicated by that single ORI only, and the condition is called as monorepliconic. You have a single replicon. So in other words, we can say each replicon has its own origin of replication, and in prokaryotes, since there is only one origin of replication, so you have monorepliconic condition. Whereas in eukaryotes and in some archaebacteria, The situation is multi-repliconic. Multi-repliconic means many replicons. So the condition is like this. If you look at the figure, you have many origins in eukaryotic genome, and each of the origin is basically a component of one replicon. So whenever the replication has to initiate, it proceeds by engaging certain replicons, and later on the replicons are fused together to cover whole of the genome. The individual replicon is small in size in eukaryotes, although the size ranging from 40 to 100 kilobase pair, and this is possibly one of the essential requirements, the multi-repliconic conditions, which accounts for the possibility of replication of long genome of eukaryotes in due course of time. Otherwise, your whole of the DNA might have taken a month at least if the condition would have been monorepliconic in prokaryotes, since the genome of eukaryotes is relatively larger as compared to your prokaryotes. So that was about replicon. Now coming to the origin of replication. Now what is origin of replication? So by definition, origin of replication are the specific sites on DNA at which replication begins, and these sites are called as origin of replications. Remember, we have to use the term sites or sequences. Origin of replication is not a single point. They are specific sites. They are made up of certain sequences. So never use the term point. Instead, use the term sites. And the origin of replications, they are abbreviated as ORI. Further, the direction of replication is also determined with respect to your ORI, and it is known that replication starts from ORI and proceeds towards terminal site. For instance, if you have an origin of replication in this figure, if you consider the origin of replication to be there, then obviously there will be a direction whether the replication will move away or towards the ORI. So the answer is replication always starts from ORI and proceeds towards terminal site. Apart from that, every origin of replication has certain common features. So let us understand one by one. The important feature is DNA sequences contain multiple short repeats. So origin of replication contains DNA sequences, and those sequences are repeated. They are basically consensus sequences. Then most of the sequences are AT rich. So there is an advantage why the sequence is AT rich. This is because the bonds between A and T are relatively easier to break as compared to GC bonds, because for replication to proceed you need your DNA to be melted, and presence of AT bonds facilitates the melting of DNA as compared to GC bonds, since AT bonds are like they consume less energy as compared to GC bonds to be broken down. The other important feature of replication origin is they need to be recognized by the enzymes. Remember, your ORI on its own cannot initiate the replication process. It needs certain enzymes, certain proteins in order for the replication to get initiated, and for that it is necessary that your origin of replication contains recognition sequences. It needs to be accessed, it needs to be recognized by certain proteins and enzymes, and the sites are involved in regulating initiation events. On origin of replication, yes, there are certain sites which are involved in regulating the initiation events. Very important, because if initiation is not regulated, then it is not possible to control the event of replication, and which is not a favorable feature for your cell. So it is important that your replication should be strictly regulated when your DNA has to replicate and when not, and this regulation actually occurs during the initiation phase only. Once the initiation phase gets over, then whole of your DNA will obviously be replicated. So these are the features of replication origin, and accordingly, if you see, the ori basically forms a replicator. Like in E. coli, you have the replicator ori C. The origin of replication of E. coli is called as ori C, whereas in yeast it is abbreviated as ARS. We'll be looking into detail of ori C and ARS. Now these replicators are recognized by certain enzymes which are generally termed as initiator. Now the type of initiator in E. coli is DNA A protein, whereas in yeast these are known as ORC, origin recognition complex, plus ABF1. We will see the details of these initiator a little later, but as of now you just try to understand that until and unless your replicator or your ori is bound by certain enzymes or proteins, the replication cannot initiate. But once the initiator recognizes and binds to your ori, then there is a formation of replicator initiator complex that allows the replication to start. So binding of these proteins is essential in order to initiate the replication. So that was about origin of replication in general. Now there is another important term to understand DNA replication, that is called as replication fork. Now what this replication fork is? So very simple, if you look at the term fork, so it is actually resembling a fork, yes. So the structure is a Y-shaped structure, and it is actually the area where actual replication of DNA takes place. So replication fork is nothing but the area where actual replication of DNA takes place. Further, we know that replication proceeds from origin of replication towards the terminus, and replication point moves along with replication fork. So there is a direction of replication, that is from the origin towards the terminus. So accordingly, your replication point also moves along with the replication fork. So if you look into this figure, this is your double-stranded DNA. Now, in this figure, the red color indicates your parent strand, whereas the blue one are your daughter strands. Now there are, if you look, there is one replication fork on the right and the other on left. The reason being, here your replication is proceeding in both the directions, left as well as towards right, or I must say upstream and downstream. Okay. So accordingly, your replication can be unidirectional. Unidirectional means if there is only one direction, so you will have only one replication fork. Or if you have two directions, the replication is being operated in two directions, then the condition is called as bidirectional. So replication can either be unidirectional if there is one fork, and it could be bidirectional also if there are two forks. The speed in E. coli is 1000 base pair per second per fork, and one Okazaki fragment synthesized is per 1 to 2 seconds, whereas in eukaryotes the rate is little slow, that is 100 base pair per second per fork. Now depending upon the type of DNA, The type of the DNA actually decides whether the replication will proceed unidirectionally or bidirectionally. And then later on in unidirectional, you will have one replication fork, whereas in bidirectional, you will have two replication fork. So if there is a linear DNA, then there is a formation of one replication fork, and we simply use the term replication fork. Whereas if there is a circular DNA, then there are two replication fork and the structure takes the form of a replication bubble. So wherever replication is happening in a circular DNA, the structure takes up the form of a bubble. And if you see the replicating structure in unidirectional, when there is only one direction, in linear DNA, so there is only one direction, whereas in bidirectional you have the two replication fork, each of them operating in both the directions. And then replication bubble in circular DNA forms a theta-like structure, because you have your parent DNA, then daughter DNA, and there are two forks. So accordingly the structure takes up the form of a theta. So that was about your origin of replication, general features and replication fork. Now let us understand the origin of replication in prokaryotes. And the typical example is E. coli. So we will discuss in detail about the origin of replication as found in E. coli. So in E. coli, your genome is a circular duplex DNA. Remember, it's a circular duplex DNA with a size of around 4 MB. Further, E. coli is a prokaryote, so they have a single origin of replication. Single origin of replication means the condition is monorepliconic. Then, DNA duplication begins at a specific site in DNA, which is called as origin of replication, or ORI-C. The length of the ORI-C is 250 base pairs long. Keep in mind, we will compare it with the eukaryotes. The length of the prokaryotic ORI-C in E. coli is 250 base pair long. The ORI-C contains repetitive base pairs. Remember, that was the feature of origin of replication, that there has to be repetitive sequences. And these repetitive base pairs are called as 9-mer and 13-mer regions. 9-mer and 13-mer regions. And these 9-mer indicates repetitive sequences. So you have basically 3 13-mer and 4 9-mer regions in ORI-C. If you look at the figure, it will be more clear. You can see the yellow colored repeats. The yellow colored region indicates your 13-mer regions, whereas the blue colored region indicates 9-mer regions. And these are AT-rich sequences, so that melting occurs at lower temperature even. And these regions help in melting of DNA duplex in ORI-C region. So look at the figure, you have these 9-mer regions and then 13-mer sequences. And if you look at the sequences are consensus, means they are conserved, and they are mostly comprising of AT. So AT-rich sequences. So that was about the structure of origin of replication in E. coli. Now let us understand how this origin of replication is being recognized by the initiator protein and replication is initiated. So basically what happens, your 9-mer regions, they are also called as DNA A box. Why? Your 9-mer regions, also known as DNA A box, because it is your 9-mer regions only that are being recognized by the initiator protein DNA A. So these 9-mer regions or DNA A box, they act as recognition sites for DNA A proteins. Means your DNA A protein will bind to 9-mer regions in ORI C. So if you look at the figure, this is your supercoiled DNA of E. coli. The yellow portion indicates your 13-mer regions, the blue indicates your 9-mer region. Now your DNA A protein, which is DNA A, comes and bind to your 9-mer region. Now as DNA A protein binds to 9-mer region in ORI C, a tension is produced in DNA, and to release that tension, DNA starts melting at 13-mer region. See, this is the point to remember. The actual binding is taking place at 9-mer region, but binding of DNA A to 9-mer region is producing a tension, and to release that tension, DNA starts melting from 13-mer region. So actually your DNA starts melting from 13-mer, not from 9-mer. So it is the actual replication start site, 13-mer region. And the unwinding takes place when DNA B helicase is loaded onto the DNA in presence of DNA C. So for unwinding, you need a helicase enzyme. So helicase is a hexameric enzyme whose job is to unwind the 2 strands of DNA. So the site of unwinding is 13-mer region, but then a protein is required, and that is known as DNA B. But for loading of this DNA B, you again need the help of another protein, which is called as DNA C. So DNA B is a hexameric protein. It binds to the single-stranded DNA in general region of ORI C DNA segment. And this binding requires ATP as well as DNA C gene product. So DNA B and DNA C both make a complex, and it is loaded onto the DNA. And after your helicase and DNA C binds to DNA, then DNA C is released, which indicates the only function of DNA C is to help in loading of DNA B helicase onto the DNA to initiate the replication process. So that is all about the events that take place at the origin of replication in E. coli during replication initiation. Apart from that, a question comes that how does cell know that replication has to be initiated, or the question is how replication initiation is regulated in bacteria. Like we have discussed what are the events that take place during initiation, but then how does it comes to the stage that yes, now the replication will be initiated. What are those events? So there is a mechanism known as methylation. So methylation of bacterial origin actually regulates initiation. So we will see the activity of replication origin is controlled by DNA methylation. कि कैसे पता चलेगा कि अब रेप्लिकेशन शुरू होना है, अब डीएनए रेडी है रेप्लिकेशन के लिए. सो एक्चुअली इट इज ए मिथाइलेशन इवेंट which prepares your DNA for replication. And for this, you need to understand that what happens is there are 11 copies of the sequence GATC and CTAG at the target sites of methylation. There are 11 copies of these sequences, and these sequences are present in your repetitive sequence in the ORI only. So on the origin of replication, we have repetitive sequences. Part of these repetitive sequence form the target sites for methylation, or I must say, since your repetitive sequence are already AT rich, so onto those AT rich regions, the A means the adenine is methylated, and more specifically the adenine is methylated at N6 position, and the job is done by the enzyme DAM methylase. So what happens is, if I conclude in one point that your DAM methylase enzyme causes the methylation of adenine at N6 position, and these methylated adenines, they contribute to the regulation of initiation. And since the sequences were a part of your DNA A box also, remember, so some of these sites overlap with DNA A box. ये जो repetitive sequence है, ये already आपका DNA A box का part है. उसी DNA A box के जो adenine हैं, they are methylated by the enzyme DAM methylase. And then how does this methylation regulates? Let us understand this. So replication initiation requires full methylation of target sites. Now the condition here is that until and unless there is a full methylation of all the target sites in the ori, the replication will not initiate. So if you look at the figure on the right side, this is a parent DNA. The blue color DNA is a parent DNA, whereas the red dot indicates the methylated strand. So in this figure, if you see, both the strands are methylated. So until and unless both the strands are methylated, replication will not initiate. But once both the strands are methylated, replication starts. Now, after replication, if you see, one of these strand is parent strand, whereas the daughter strand is new. So the result is that your daughter strand will not be methylated. So now your DNA is actually hemimethylated. Only half of the DNA is methylated. Why? Because out of both the methylated parent strand, one of the strand is contributing to the new daughter DNA. As a result, only half of the DNA is methylated now. And in this condition also, the replication cannot initiate. Or I must say, hemimethylated sites, which are the result of the replication, they are also not able to initiate replication. To initiate replication, again DAM methylase enzyme will come and methylate all the target sites, and then only you will get an active origin. So active origin means all the target sites are methylated. Both the strands of DNA are fully methylated. Whole of the ori is methylated. This is the meaning of active origin. So hemimethylated sites, which are the consequence of replication, are also not able to initiate replication. And hemimethylated sites are produced as one of the parent strand contains methylated residues, while the newly synthesized strand does not. Apart from that, GATC sites at origin remains hemimethylated for 13 minutes after replication. This is because at typical GATC sites elsewhere in the genome, methylation may begin immediately following replication. So just to avoid that methylation does not occur immediately post replication, there is a pause time of 13 minutes after replication. Even promoter of DNA A gene is also regulated by this methylation process. Another important function of this methylation in bacteria is that it allows your DNA mismatch recognition machinery to distinguish the old template strand from the new strand. So now we know during replication, one of the important job of polymerase enzymes is to do the proofreading, to recognize if there is a mismatch. Now how do they recognize that which strand is new and which strand is parent strand? So it is by the presence of these methyl groups. The enzyme is able to distinguish that which is the template strand, which is the parent strand, and which is the daughter strand. So actually mismatch needs to be checked only in the daughter strand, not the parent strand. So this is another important purpose of methylation in bacteria. So I hope it is clear that it is by virtue of methylation events the initiation of replication is regulated, or methylation is producing active origins. Full methylation, not hemimethylated sites. So that was all about origin of replication in E. coli and their regulation. Apart from that, we have certain information about origin of replication in eukaryotes, and the model organism we used to study is yeast. So it is not possible to understand or to learn about all of the replicons of eukaryotes because they have many, but then we study about eukaryotic ori, taking the example of yeast. In yeast we have autonomously replicating sequences. The replicators are known as autonomously replicating sequences. The size of autonomously replicating sequences, or ARS, are only 100 to 200 base pair long. So that was important to know that the size is shorter than E. coli. Possibly because in E. coli you have only one origin of replication, and that is controlling whole of the genome, whereas in eukaryotes you have many replicons, so accordingly the size of individual replicon is relatively short. Whereas in higher organisms the origins are of 500 to 1000 base pair in size. This ARS element consists of 80 rich regions. One of the common feature of replication origin, and they also contain consensus sequences. The important one is the A domain and additional elements. So ARS is comprised of A domain and additional elements. You look at the figure, there is an A domain and then there are additional elements B1, B2 and B3, out of which B1, B2, B3 are less conserved and A domain is the most conserved one, and this A domain has 14 base pair sequence, and out of those 14 base pair, 11 base pair sequences are conserved. The elements A and B and this 6 protein bind the 6 protein ORC. So what happens during replication initiation in ARS? Your initiator, as I said, ORC, origin replication complex, it binds to the A domain and B elements, basically B1. Your origin recognition complex binds to your A and B1 during early phases of G1, which is the phase of cell cycle, so that there is a preparation for replication, because actual synthesis takes place in S phase. So during early G1 phase of cell cycle, they bind to A and B1. So this is all about the structure of ori in yeast. Now the common information about replication is replication takes place in stages. Stages means one stage will be followed by the another. There is a sequence. So first stage is initiation, where there is a recognition of your ori, followed by elongation. So for elongation, there is formation of replisome. Replisome is nothing but protein complex that helps in elongation during DNA replication. So during replication process, a number of enzymes and proteins are involved, and altogether they are termed as replisome. So formation of replisome is essential for elongation, and it exists as an independent unit but assembles de novo at the origin for each replication cycle. So although all the proteins they exist independently, but when required during replication, they assemble at the origin for replication. And then occurs your termination, and this termination is followed by separation of duplicated chromosomes. So we will be looking into each of the stage one by one in the upcoming lectures. Apart from them, we are also going to have a discussion on the enzymes involved in DNA replications. So we'll meet again for the same.